everybody. It is a beautiful late spring afternoon. The mockingbird is busy building her nest in the exact same spot. She builds it every year. And we're headed out to the low-quad art studio in the driveway. Also, the plant nursery. Got some loofah gourds starting to sprout. Some little die cuts there. Kitchen bean growing next to the kitchen door, right over there. And today we are going to do your fourth project, which is going to be a three-dimensional slab project. So what does that mean? Well, up until now, all of our slab projects, you know, the tiles, the fish are pretty much two-dimensional. So they're kind of flat, like a piece of paper. Now, this artist did an excellent job. She kind of lifted the fins up off and almost gave like a sense of motion and aliveness. So it's not totally two-dimensional. I mean, it has some three-dimensional aspects, but for the most part, it's flat on the ground or on the wall. Now, you would think I would never forget who made such an amazing piece of art, but it was over a year ago and they did not sign their piece. So I have no idea. If anybody knows who made this, message me and we'll get it back to you. Okay, so what does it mean to be three-dimensional? Basically just to come up off the surface and become, you know, a sculptural object. So your hinge pots are three-dimensional, but so far we haven't built anything structural with the slabs. So the slab does not have to lay flat on the ground. So you can see the sculptural aspects that it lends itself to. And you can use that very practically to do what we're going to do today, which is to make a cylinder. Okay? So a cylinder is a tube, and we're also, the next project, going to make boxes. So a box is also made of slabs that are connected flat instead of rounded. And I made so many boxes showing you guys how that I just started planting plants in them. But you can also add to the bottom these little feet. See how the feet are square and the box is square? So you're like repeating a theme. Again, showing pattern. And up here, we have kind of the round box with the round lid, with the round handle, with the round feet. So repetition is always good in your art. Okay, so you've got the boxes and the cups, which are practical items. Some people would say that makes it a craft because it is functional. You can do sculptural items that are incorporating the same aspects. So here we just have boxes, but in a sculptural use. I mean, imagine if that was huge, it would be an amazing monument. So don't limit yourself to what's possible. Today, we're going to focus on the cylinder as our shape because it's the simplest, and then we'll show you what you can do with your cylinder. So you can make a mug if you want to make a mug that you can drink out of. You could make a vase, or you could make a box. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So what I did was I pre-rolled my slab out before the video, so you didn't have to watch the roly-poly video of me using the rolling pin. But a couple tricks that I use that you might want to know about are the paint stick trick, where I put it between the paint sticks, and the reason is, you know, consistency we talked about, but for me it was really, I was trying to force the clay to go up and down, like, so that it wouldn't just roll out, and I wanted to get as much length as I could. So that helped. Also, instead of kind of pushing like a hamburger patty in the beginning, which would turn out with a big round slab, I sort of made like a rectangular patty and then rolled it out. So go ahead and get rolling, and what I want is the largest rectangle that I can get out of this piece. So I'm just going to cut the ends to where I think is the shortest width that I'm willing to have. So maybe right there, and right here. And again, I'm not measuring, I'm just getting as much as I can out of the slab that I've made. Okay, so I might want to save these scrap pieces, especially the end ones that are long. Those will be great for handles. They'll make excellent handles. So I'm just going to kind of set them aside, but under the plastic so they don't get too dry. And these I also want to put under plastic. Okay, so basically a cylinder starts out as a rectangle that is then curved around and attached at a seam. So I want to attach these two ends right here. So I need to score and slip them. So this time I'm going to use a fork instead of the wire tool. It's going to be a lot more efficient. And I'm going to score both sides of the area that will be connected. Put some of that good slip on there. And now I'm going to use some pressure, so they don't just want to touch, you want to really push them together, but carefully. I've got my hand underneath to kind of support it. rubbing it together. The more the two pieces can become one, the better. So I'm sure that's not the first or the last time you'll hear me say that. So this connection seems a little bit weak, so I'm going to grab a little scrap from that extra clay I had, make it really thin, like it's not really like a piece, it's just like a smudge of clay, and kind of reinforce it. I can scrape off extra later. Right now, I care more about connection than looks. And I'm also rubbing the interior of the cylinder. Okay, and now I'm going to try to make the circle the way I like it. You want, in addition to the seam not showing in smoothness, you want the seam to kind of not show in the overall circumference of the circle. Now, you don't have to hide the seam. You can, celebrate the seam and that it's handmade if you want. Like here, in this one, I just let it show and made it part of the design. Same with how when the handle goes up and over, it's like, it shows like how it was made. So that's all preference, but the strong connection is important no matter what. Okay, so remember how we saved some of that clay from before? So what we're going to do is use the slab if we have enough extra, or roll some more slab, and you're going to put it on there, and instead of cutting it right away, I'm going to trace just a thin line. Then pull it off, and then cut it along the line. So, as you'll hear me say often, when you're cutting the line, always try to err on the side of larger, outside of the line, because you can always go smaller, but it's a lot harder to go bigger. So I'm going to take my fork and got a little bit too much slip. And score and slip, score and slip. So decide which side you want to be the top of your column or mug or vase, and which side you want to be the bottom. I chose this side to be the bottom because it's a little bit skinny right there. I don't like that for the rim. I want it to have the strength of the bottom to help it. And then you're going to stick it on. Before you stick it, make sure you have sort of the shape that you want it to be in. And I'm being gentle, but I am applying a little bit of pressure downward onto there. Now, remember how we said better to be bigger rather than smaller, safer rather than sorry. See, I've got extra clay here. That's okay. I can either cut it off, but I can also kind of use it to strengthen that connection, like that. And I can use some of that extra clay to reinforce my seam. Better to kind of put my hand in when I do that to support it from the other side. You notice that clay is pretty moist and soft. Depending on what you're doing, you might like it a little bit stiffer. It takes more effort, but it also gives it more stability if it's a little bit harder clay, and that all depends on how wet you keep it in your bag. See how I'm pressing from the inside so that I'm actually have my two fingers are almost touching with the clay in between them. So I'm working from the inside as well. Okay. Now, it's nice to have a board or something you can turn. Before I went any farther, I realized what I was doing. I was getting it all wet and it was starting to stick. So I pulled it off. You don't want to get your whole thing stuck to your board. Okay, so as with anything else, now's the time when we're going to focus more on strength, and then as it gets a little bit harder, we'll start to detail it for how we want it to turn out finally in the end. So I'm going to do this technique again where I roll out a tiny little coil or snake and stick it in the crevice where the two meet. Now this is really soft wet clay. If it wasn't, I would want to get it like wet and put more slip on it. But since I didn't add slip, I have to really work it in. I can't just set it there. Like, I've got to rub it and make it one. So tools really do come in handy sometimes when you have like a long, space to get your fingers into. So you can use like a pencil with an eraser to kind of smooth it. Almost like an extension of your finger. That's going to strengthen it. Now we're going to just perfect it a little bit. You can use your spoon a couple different ways to smooth or burnish like this, or just scrape kind of like that, like a chisel. So you could be done at this point, or you could decide to add some texture or add a handle. Since I have this extra clay, I will go ahead and make a handle. So I want to pick the one that has the most potential as far as being the widest for the longest. So I'm just going to kind of use this as a straight edge. Now you don't have to use it. It looks a little bit uneven, so you can just hand cut it, recut it as well. It's basically like the longest rectangle you can get. And then what you want to do is test it. Like, you want it to be comfortable, you don't want it to be too small, too big. And you want it to have a comfortable shape. So you could do it like that, or you could do it like that. You could take the bottom, since there's so much extra, and curl it around. So I think I want it to be about like that. And then I want a little bit of extra, just kind of right there, to sort of, and I'm going to actually put it inside. We have an elementary school just a block away from here. I don't know how they manage to teach, but the jet's going all day long. Some slip. Okay, and then do connection points. Now I'm choosing to put my handle at the same place as my seam. So I'm gonna do that because I feel like it'll add some strength. It'll add extra thickness right here. Give it some pressure. Put my hand on the other side so I can press. Okay, at this point I want to step back. It's a little bit hard because I'm looking through my phone for this video, but I want to step back and make sure it's aligned and that like the top and the bottom line up. Make sure my fingers still fit in there, and keep in mind that it's going to shrink about 15% when it gets heated. It's being heated to around 2000 degrees, and all the liquid parts of the clay will evaporate, and so that means it will shrink. We'll have less mass. I'm going to get my hands a little bit wet and rub around in here and get a really strong connection. Okay, so I kind of like the way this is hanging, but as you can see, it's still very soft, you know, and it's a thin piece, so you may have to support it temporarily until it can hold itself up. So like you could ball up a ball of newspaper, or like I can take this little pinch pod, or let's see, I want it to be more like that. So I'm going to leave this box here to hold it, and I'm not going to forget about it. I'm just going to wait a few minutes, you know, and keep checking on it to see when I can pull the box away, or, you know, I could let it totally dry this way. Okay, so that's you know, a basic way to make a handle. Now you don't have to make your handle out of a slab. You could roll like a thick coil and make your handle out of a coil. This one is very similar to the one I just made. This one is cut from a slab, and then they added another piece right here that's decorative, but also makes it comfortable to hold. So you can see this mug was, this one was thrown on a wheel, but then he took like a blob of clay and then just went, you know, and smooths his thumb, and it makes like a comfortable place to put your thumb. This is just purely decorative, just a miniature tube on a tube, right? So there's repetition again with the cylindrical theme. So there's many different ways to do handles. You don't need a handle at all. You can make it a vase, or a cup, you know, just a regular cup, not a mug. Or like we talked before, you could make a lid on your cylinder and make your cylinder a box. So there's all kinds of possibilities, and I am looking forward to seeing what you all come up with. I made this handmade stamp that rolls, and you can make a similar stamp yourself. Here's some examples in a book of handmade stamps, and then see, when you roll them, you get different kinds of patterns. So the cool thing about the stamp is that it's, you know, negative relief because I've poked holes, but when I use it, it creates a positive relief image, right? So the polka dots are going to stick outwards and give texture. So I can also make multiple stamps out of the stamp. So if I do that, the swirl is actually positive and then negative on the stamp, so you're getting like the mirror image. So if I want to roll this on my cylinder, I'm going to take this hand and use it to counter the pressure. Now, the best thing with stamps is just to go for it, right? When it's time. You've ever done a stamp too light and tried to go right over top of it, you've probably learned that that doesn't work so well. Better to just cut the shape I want first. Get it just right. Have a teardrop shape. I want it a little bit bigger. So what happened there is I got my board wet. See how the board is damp? It's not very good. Okay, I'm gonna score and slip. My work. I'm not press. There we go. Right. And there's my mug. Don't forget to sign the bottom. I sure do miss y'all. And I can't wait to see pictures of the cylinders you create. We did look at some boxes today, and that will be the next lesson. So in the class, typically when we're in school, I let the kids choose one three-dimensional slab project, either the cylinder or the box. But since we have all this time, you can do both if you want to. If so, I would recommend doing the cylinder first because it's definitely the easier project. The box takes a little bit more dedication and a little bit more time. So we will do that for our next lesson. And I can't wait to see you. Miss you. Bye-bye. We are checking out of Studio Loquat. Can't believe it's so chilly today.
thought spring might be over, but we were blessed with a chilly day.